Brandon, do you have injury updates on several guys, Dustin, Josh McDonald, Mike, and then any update on kind of Joey and his recovery?
Yeah, I'll knock all that out. Donald and Josh are out of the protocol, and they'll be out at practice today. Dustin will not be at practice, but he's trending well. Hamstring recovering is going well. Chris Rump's knee is progressing well. I think, that's been a bright spot. I think that he's getting a lot closer to returning. Mike Williams will be out with his ankle, progressing well. Keenan Allen is still day-to-day with his hamstring. And then Joey Bosa's recovery, he's back in the building, doing well, looks healthy, fresh. It's, obviously going to be week to week. We'll let you know when, he's closer to returning to practice. But in good spirits, and the progress has been positive, and we're excited about that.
Keenan, did he? Is it still like week to week for Dustin?
Yeah, week to week, but going well, and made good progress over the bye, and I think getting closer to a return to practice.
And yesterday, the trade deadline, historic number of trades, I think for you guys. What was kind of your thought going into yesterday, and did you guys consider making any moves?
I think you're aware of all the activity in the league, and we were certainly a part of it. Nothing materialized, but I thought that we were active to an extent, and nothing really happened for us that was going to make sense for this season or next. That's a lot of it's not just this season; it's the years to come. So, but yeah, there were some moves made yesterday for sure.
With Joey, do you guys have like a target date in mind? I know after the surgery you said 6 to 10 weeks.
Yeah. 10
weeks would be the Miami game. Is like, do you guys have any sort of sense about when you're expecting to be back in games?
Yeah, Daniel, I think that 6 to 10 weeks is just taking the people that have gone through that injury. I think his brother, like I said, went through something similar. But I think we're going to let you know. But I think if you shot for the middle of that would be ideal. But we'll let you know. I think when he's returning to practice, and I think once he returns to practice, then you can, I think, establish a timeline of what's next. Until he's out there at practice, I think we just got to err on the side of not saying anything. That way we don't get our hopes up one way or the other.
On Monday, we noticed Keenan wasn't even dressed. Is he? You mentioned after the game he didn't have a setback, but that would suggest maybe something did happen.
No, he did his workout Monday morning. So he did a rehab session, or whatever you want to call it, a training session in the morning. And we're just being, careful with him. Nothing happened in that game. There was no setback, but it just hasn't responded the way we had hoped, and that's the truth. And we're just trying to, get him back, and it's just kind of it's in a tricky area. And, we just want to make sure that when he goes out there, he has full confidence to play his game, and that's what we're trying to establish, just to get him healthy.
When you say it hasn't responded, are you talking about the initial injury or what happened against Seattle?
Nothing happened in the Seattle game. It just hasn't. He hasn't gained that full trigger, that full Keenan Allen yet. It just hasn't happened. It's just in a tricky spot. This injury can do that at times, and that's what it's doing. So it just requires all of our patience, at the forefront, his patience. It's testing his patience, but we're going to make sure that, he keeps progressing.
Is he going to practice today?
He will not be out of practice today.
Is there concern that you might go into Sunday without him and Mike?
We're just going to take it day to day. I think anything's a possibility, but we're going to make sure that we do everything we can to get him back strong and get him back feeling his fullest, where he's not out there having to figure things out. He's had it already figured out in practice.
So you're confident going in there with Josh, Michael Bandy?
Yeah, we'll be confident with whoever goes out there that's dressed up. We got full confidence in our group, and we know all the guys on our team, and we're gonna have to put a good game plan with the guys who are out there.
If Keenan plays on Sunday, would he be on pitch count?
I don't know that. I'm not, ready to make any statements that way. Our goal is to get him feeling like himself again, and we're not there yet.
Brandon, just with the trade deadline, I think the fan base looks at just all the injuries that you guys have, and there may be some frustration there just over you guys staying pat and not making a move. What would be your message, to the fan base, any fans that maybe are frustrated out there over you guys not making a move and maybe adding some reinforcements, considering there might have been some opportunities to do that?
Yeah, Daniel, it's a good point. I mean, we made a lot of moves in the offseason. We made a lot of moves, made aggressive moves. I felt like we made a lot of smart moves that I think are paying off for us right now in terms of establishing the type of depth that you need based on what's happened to us and many others around the league. I think at the trade deadline, it's just the trade deadline is something that's overblown in the league. Number one, not that many trades happen. There's a lot of hype towards it, but then there's not as many as people think. And what you got to do is you got to make moves that are that make sense for this year. But then it's not just this year; it's future years too. And we feel like we've got a lot of guys coming back. The guys that that you guys know about, Mike, Joey. Those guys are coming back for us. Keenan, they're coming back for us. These guys aren't out for the season where, hey, that would really put us in a tough spot. Where like they're not coming back, so hey, we need to replace them. That was our mindset. We were, in discussions like the rest of the league, and it just didn't make sense for us at the time. And we feel confident in the guys that we're going to get back, and that we have a lot of time to, create the identity for the rest of the season.
I know there's obviously cap implications for next year, and that precludes you from making moves on guys who have a lot of guaranteed money for next year, that sort of thing. There's one deal the Eagles made, though, for Robert Quinn. It's on the final year of his deal. They gave up a fourth-round pick. The Bears took on pretty much all of his salary. With that deal specifically, is that something that you guys looked into? Obviously, with the injuries you have at edge rusher, the depth situation there, is that something you considered? Maybe why did that?
Yeah, I mean, I think draft capital and then the implications financially are, the reasons why we did or didn't do that. And that's one thing I think that is a strength of our team is that we have all of our assets. We have draft picks in every round next year, and we have a very healthy cap situation, and we want to make sure that we keep it that way. Because when you keep it that way, you can have the type of offseason that we had last year, where you can make moves that can really help your future. And we want to make sure that we have both of those things healthy as we possibly can, while making sure that we're in the mix competing with the rest of the league. And I feel like we've done that, and I like where our football team's at. And I know that, the second half of the season, we get a really, we get a bunch of games here to bring it all together.
Because of how most teams value draft capital and cap situations, is that why we see in the NFL compared to other sports less of that rent a player on the last year of their deal and getting them for half a season because that draft capital is valuable to most teams?
Yeah, in the future, like the way our league's set up is different than a lot of other sports. And also onboarding a player into your team, it's a lot easier when you're playing a team that only has 5 guys on the floor at one time. It's a lot easier in basketball because there are not as many variables. When you play a sport like football, it's not one-to-one. I make a baseball trade, that guy's playing the same position, and he's batting in the same batter's box, and it doesn't matter. There isn't the same transition that a football player goes through. They're different sports, so you can't compare the two. And so that's just my position on that topic. But, every team that's in the league is trying to make their team as good as it can be, and we're no exception to that.
All the players you've had in and out of the lineup, right now through 7 games, I mean, how good of a sense of this team do you have in terms of how good you might be? Do you have any idea yet?
Yeah, a strong sense of how good we can be because I've seen it. I've seen us play. And what we've experienced is a lot of the tougher side of things through 7 games. But I've seen us, full strength. I've seen us have to absorb some tough stuff and to be able to overcome it, to go on a 3-game winning streak. And so I think, where you need to go. And I think with this team that we have right now, we're excited to get back out there on the practice field after a bye week. We're excited to get back on the practice field and improve because I think we do know a lot more about our team and how we have to do things because we've experienced a lot of the disruption that some teams haven't gone through so far. So we've experienced all that. So we have a lot of contingencies. We've had to operate already in a lot of other spaces that some people haven't. So I think that's been healthy for us to get our nose bloody, to have to go play some tough, rugged games, to have some attrition and have to be able to figure it out. And I think that's healthy for the rest of the season, because you've already had to make a lot of those adjustments.
What did you feel like you accomplished during the bye week?
Just a lot of assessment in all phases of the program. I think offense, defense, kicking game, the way you practice, the way you meet, the way you travel, preparing for the next game, getting a jump start on the next game. I feel like I was able to communicate to a lot of different groups, and that's important when you get that sort of time, to try and connect with your people, coach, player, staff, and then, get some rest and be with my family, And so we had a really good practice on Monday, and that's where our focus was, to have a really good practice on Monday, and now we get an opportunity today, and I'm looking forward to getting out there with the guys.
With those assessments, what did you come away about your offense and your defense?
That I think that we've, Lindsay, and talking with you guys, before the break, is that it's been inconsistent, but that we've shown that we can play really high-level football, and it's just tying that all together and bringing it all together. I think we've shown that a lot of resilience and having to figure things out. We've learned some tough lessons, but I think our guys are at a point where they have a lot of confidence in each other's ability to face the tough part of the NFL. Hey, face a tough loss, face some injuries, and being able to come on the other side of it. And so I think that that's really healthy. I know that, just speaking from comparison to last season, we didn't experience nearly as much, at this juncture. And then I think after the bye, we experienced a ton of it. I think already this season we've experienced a lot that's going to help us down the stretch. And, I think our guys now have that sense of who we are. And I think when you get a chance to reset, you also know when you come back what needs to be done, and more importantly, how it needs to be done. And that's where our focus is.
How do you teach consistency?
It's the approach and everything. It's the approach because it's not just the game. A lot of people look at the game. It's just the approach during the week that matters the most to create a consistently winning culture. It's consistently winning, organization. It's every day, and I think looking back on what I told the guys is, you don't know it or not, but we have a really good thing here, fellas. Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be 4-3. We wouldn't. We would be a lot worse if we didn't have a good culture. We would be worse based on what's happened, because you can look at the league and you can see. And so, although we haven't performed to our capacity yet, that's an exciting thing, because we know what's in front of us, and we know what we've had to absorb, and now we know where we need to go and how to get there. And that's important, that you have that perspective. And then like I said, to create the consistency, it starts with how you do things every single day. And that's where our focus is going to be.
What are the challenges of facing this Falcons offense? A lot of play action, just what Arthur's doing schematically there.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job. They run the ball at a really high level, and then they throw the ball down the field, and they get a lot of explosions both ways. Time of possession, they really possess the ball, and I think that in terms of the matchup, they have 5 guys with over 50 carries. They spread the ball around in the run game. Their quarterback's a factor running it, loose plays. Marcus is playing fantastic this season, and they've got a lot of big play weapons. They drafted the receiver in the first round, Drake London, who's a nice player. Kyle Pitts, is good of a prospect that's come out in the last several years since I've been in the NFL. He's a quality player, and they just did a good job bringing that group together, just playing tough and rugged. The line has come together. There's a lot of young players on there that have really emerged, and they've played in a lot of close games. So they're battle tested, and there's a reason why they're first in their division. They're number 1 in their division because they put together a really good season on offense.
Cordell Patterson looks to be back this week. You go back.
I do.
To Hutchinson Community College. What makes him so dynamic?
Rare size, speed, rare acceleration, rare contact player. He's 230. People look at, they don't realize how big he is. But he runs fast through the smoke, fearless through the smoke. and I saw it, as an 18-year-old kid at Hutchinson Community College. He was the same way then that he is now, and anyone that's ever been around him knows how special he is, and I'm just glad that, he had enough time in the NFL for everybody to see that he's more than just a kick returner, because, he's a good example of, when you stay with it and you join up with the right people that have the right vision for you, what can happen. I'm really proud of him, knowing his sister Crystal, his mom, how important they are to him, how far he's come. I'm really proud of him. He's had an amazing career. He'll play a long time. He's got some rare engineering, so hoping he's not at the game this week.
Were you surprised he was able to make the transition so smoothly from
No.
receiver to running back?
Yeah, no surprise. Cordero can do anything on a football field.
And then this week, is it going to be Isaiah versus Larry again to see who dresses on Sunday?
Yes.
Has Isaiah taken the steps forward that you guys had hoped for at this point?
There's not enough evidence, one way or the other. He got a carry in the football game, and he did enough to be active for that game. But to prove himself as an NFL back, there's still a ways to go. So he's practicing well, and hopefully he can continue to earn more opportunities where he can show what he can do.
Out of all the people who needed rest during the bye week, Austin you were at the top of that list. Just are you concerned with the amount of use that he's got in the first 7 games?
No, not at all. He's an NFL running back, so we're trying to use him the best way we can. He's really come alive. After the start where he didn't score the ball, he's really scored the ball, been a real factor in the passing game and the run game, and he's as solid as ever, doing a great job leading our team, and we're going to need him to have a great second half of the season, and he's the type of guy that he's going to get better as the season goes on. He's not a guy that wears down because he brings it to the facility every day, and he's one of those guys that I was talking about, how you build a culture with. You got to do it with people like him.
The physical rest and assessing the team during the bye week is crucial, but can you talk about the mental aspect of how important resetting that is?
Yeah, the NFL's a really challenging season, just to face 17 regular season weeks to 3 preseason games, a training camp, it's a long ways. And so the fact that you can re-energize, you have to have that, in order to gain perspective, know where you need to go. It's just the physical rest, but then from a mindset standpoint, you gotta, that as tough as the first stretch of the season is, the rest of it is a lot tougher because there's more at stake in the second part of the season. So your mind's got to be sharp, and I think the bye week does a good job of resetting it, and that's why I like having the bye closer to the middle or past it, so you can kind of gain that second wind.
With Palmer and Parham out of the protocol, the expectation is they'll both be available this weekend.
No, I'm not willing to say that. They're both going to be in practice, and then we'll make the determination moving forward. But they're both going to be at practice full.